There comes a point in every life when the weight of the battle becomes almost unbearable. You've stood on the front lines, swinging your sword with trembling hands, praying for strength while the enemy's voice grew louder and the ground beneath your feet seemed to give way. You've tried to hold your ground, to fight for your dignity, your family, your faith, and your future. And yet, despite your courage, there have been nights you've fallen to your knees, whispering words only heaven could hear. God, I can't do this anymore. It is in those moments, the moments when you feel you have nothing left to give, that heaven begins to move in ways you cannot see. For while you've been fighting battles alone, the one who commands the armies of heaven has been watching, measuring every tear, weighing every blow you've endured. And when the appointed time comes, he steps into the field, not as a distant observer, but as the mighty warrior who fights for his own. You see, God's intervention is rarely announced with the noise of trumpets. Often it comes quietly, in the stillness of an answered prayer, in the sudden shift of circumstances you could never have orchestrated, in the peace that floods your soul before the battle is even over. But make no mistake, when God steps in, the tide turns. No enemy can withstand him, no plot can prosper, and no chain can remain unbroken. Think of the countless times in Scripture when God fought for his people. When the seas split open for Israel, it was not their own strength that made a path through the impossible. It was God's power. When the walls of Jericho fell, it was not the echo of human shouts that shook them down, it was the hand of God. And when the giant fell before David, it wasn't the stone alone that secured the victory, it was the unseen force of divine favor that guided its flight. Right now you may feel outnumbered. The opposition may seem stronger, louder, and more relentless than anything you've ever faced. But God has a way of winning battles in ways that defy logic. He has a way of making the enemy's weapons turn against themselves, of transforming the schemes meant to destroy you into stepping stones that elevate you. What looks like a disadvantage to you is an opportunity for God to display his strength. And here's the truth: you were never meant to fight alone. God has been with you in the silence, standing guard over your soul while you slept, placing invisible shields around you when the enemy tried to strike unseen. Every attack you survived was evidence of his protection. Every door that stayed shut when you begged for it to open was him saving you from battles you were never meant to fight. So if you are weary, take heart. The same God who held the sun in place for Joshua is holding your life in his hands right now. The same God who silenced lions for Daniel will silence every threat against you. And the same God who walked into the fire with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will stand beside you in the flames until you emerge without the smell of smoke. The battle may have been long, the scars may run deep, but you are not forsaken, and you are not forgotten. Heaven has heard your cry, and help is already on the way. Stand firm, not because your strength is enough, but because the one who fights for you has never lost a battle, and he never will. You see, God's intervention is rarely announced with the noise of trumpets. Often it comes quietly, in the stillness of an answered prayer, in the sudden shift of circumstances you could never have orchestrated, in the peace that floods your soul before the battle is even over. But make no mistake, when God steps in, the tide turns. No enemy can withstand him, no plot can prosper, and no chain can remain unbroken. And this is the mystery that is so hard to grasp when you are in the middle of the fight. Because from where you are standing, all you can see are the shadows closing in. You hear the voices that tell you you're not going to make it, that the enemy is too strong, that you've already lost too much to ever recover. And you begin to believe that if God were truly going to help, he would have already done it by now. But this is where trust is tested. in the space between your last ounce of strength and His mighty hand moving on your behalf. There are moments in life when God will deliberately allow the battle to reach a point where you know beyond any doubt that it is no longer in your control. He lets the waters rise so high that if He does not part them, you will be swept away. And it's not because He delights in your struggle. It's because He wants you to experience the victory in such a way that you will never attribute it to your own skill, your own wisdom, or your own connections. When He acts, it will be undeniable that it was His hand, His power, and His timing. That's why sometimes the answer is delayed. That's why the battle is allowed to press harder than you think you can handle. Because in the quiet preparation of heaven, God is positioning the pieces so that when He moves, everything changes in an instant. One shift in His timing can dismantle years of oppression. One command from His throne can silence every accuser and scatter every enemy. And when He steps in, there is no force in the universe that can resist His will. You have to remember, the God who fights for you does not fight like man fights. We swing wildly, desperate to defend ourselves, exhausting our strength trying to block every blow. But He fights with precision. He fights with authority. He does not waste motion, and He never misses. The enemy may try to intimidate you with numbers, but God has never needed numbers to win. Gideon's army was reduced to just 300 men, and still the victory was overwhelming. Jonathan and his armor-bearer took on an entire Philistine garrison, and the enemy trembled in fear. The battle belongs to Him, and when you let Him take over, you will see the kind of victory that not only delivers you, but also leaves a testimony for generations to come. Think of the countless times in Scripture when God fought for His people. When the sea split open for Israel, it was not their own strength that made a path through the impossible. It was God's power. When the walls of Jericho fell, it was not the echo of human shouts that shook them down. It was the hand of God. And when the giant fell before David, it wasn't the stone alone that secured the victory. It was the unseen force of divine favor that guided its flight. These stories are not just ancient history. They are reminders, living records of God's unchanging nature. The same God who acted then will act now. The same God who defended His people in the past is still the defender of His people today. And He has not forgotten how to win. Right now you may feel outnumbered. The opposition may seem stronger, louder, and more relentless than anything you've ever faced. You may be staring at a situation where every possible solution has been exhausted, and yet the pressure keeps increasing. But this is the place where God's power shines brightest. In the impossible. When the battle has stripped you of every illusion of control, when the noise of the enemy is at its loudest, when the night is at its darkest, that is when His light breaks through, and the enemy realizes too late that you were never truly fighting alone. And here's the truth. You were never meant to fight alone. God has been with you in the silence, standing guard over your soul while you slept, placing invisible shields around you when the enemy tried to strike unseen. Every attack you survived was evidence of His protection. Every door that stayed shut when you begged for it to open was Him saving you from battles you were never meant to fight. And while you thought He was distant, He was actually closer than you could imagine, watching, guiding, blocking blows you never even knew were coming. There were times you wondered how you made it through certain seasons without breaking completely. That was Him. There were nights you cried yourself to sleep, and something deep inside you still woke up with the strength to face the day. That was Him. There were situations you thought would destroy you, and yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still holding on to your faith. That was Him. And just as He has been with you in the shadows, He will be with you in the spotlight of victory. The same God who has kept you through every hidden battle will bring you through this one. And when He does, the enemy will know that they were never really fighting against you. They were fighting against the Lord of Heaven's armies. Every attack you've endured has been seen. Every injustice has been recorded in the courts of heaven. God has not overlooked the cruelty, the betrayal, or the schemes designed to wear you down. And because He is both merciful and just, He knows the exact moment to rise on your behalf. The timing of God's intervention is never accidental. What looks to you like a delay is often His way of allowing the enemy to reveal the fullness of their intentions, so that when He moves, there is no doubt as to who was right and who was wrong. He waits until the plans of the wicked are fully exposed, until their confidence swells to the point that they believe they cannot be stopped. And then, in a moment, He turns their pride into their downfall. This is why the Bible says that no weapon formed against you will prosper, not because the weapons are never built, but because they will never accomplish their purpose. The arrows may be fired, but God can redirect their path. The traps may be set, but God can cause the enemy to fall into them themselves. The words spoken against you may be loud and convincing to others, but God has a way of dismantling lies with undeniable truth, and when He does it so thoroughly that there is no room for anyone to question His hand in it. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. For years it seemed as though God was silent, but in reality, God was positioning him for a victory that would not only vindicate him, but also save the very people who betrayed him. The story could have ended in bitterness and loss, but instead it ended in honor and restoration. Because when God fights for you, He doesn't just remove you from the pit, He raises you to the palace. And when the enemy sees you standing in the place God prepared for you, untouched by the harm they intended, their defeat is complete. The same will be true for you. What the enemy meant to bury you will be the very thing God uses to plant you in fertile ground. What they intended to use as your ending will become the beginning of a new chapter, one marked by God's favor and undeniable victory. The reason the battle has felt so intense is because the reward on the other side is greater than anything you've experienced before. And the reason God has let you reach this point is so that when He steps in, the testimony will be so powerful, it will strengthen the faith of others who are still in their own battles. But even as you wait for Him to act, He is fighting in ways you cannot see. You may think nothing is happening, but heaven is not silent. Angels are being dispatched, doors are being unlocked, hearts are being moved. Circumstances are being shifted. What looks still to you is alive with divine activity. And when it's time for you to see it, everything will align in a way that leaves you in awe. This is why it's dangerous to give up too soon. So many people quit at the very edge of their breakthrough because they mistake God's silence for absence. But His silence is often a strategy, a sign that He is preparing the kind of victory that will leave no one doubting who fought for you. That is why, even in your exhaustion, you must hold on, because at the appointed time you will see that the one who promised to fight for you has been faithful all along. And when He fights for you, His power is not limited to defense. He moves to reclaim what was stolen. God is not content to simply protect you from harm. He restores. He returns joy that was lost, opportunities that were taken, relationships that were sabotaged, and peace that was shattered. He knows how to make the enemy pay back what they took, and not just in equal measure, but in abundance. When He is finished, you will have more than you started with, because His nature is to bless beyond the boundaries of fairness. When the battle seems endless, remember that it is not your responsibility to win by force of will. It is your responsibility to stand in faith while the Almighty goes to war on your behalf. Your task is not to control every outcome, but to stay aligned with His word, to keep your heart from bitterness, to resist the temptation to fight in your own strength when He has called you to trust in His. For the enemy knows that if he can wear you out before God moves, he can rob you of the joy of the victory when it comes. Don't give him that satisfaction. Stand firm, because your defender is closer than you think. There comes a time in every battle when the warrior has to make a choice: to keep swinging in their own strength, or to step back and let the commander take the lead. That's the moment many of us struggle with, because we've been conditioned to believe that letting go means giving up. But in the kingdom of God, surrender is not defeat. It is the highest form of trust. When you step back, you are not abandoning the fight. You are making room for the one whose arm is mighty to save. You see, the truth is that we often fight on two fronts: the visible and the invisible. We pour ourselves into the visible, trying to solve problems with logic, strategy, and sheer determination. But what wears us down the most is the invisible: the fear, the doubt, the emotional wounds, the spiritual opposition that we can't put our hands on. And this is where God's strength becomes most evident. While we are limited to swinging our sword in the natural, He commands victory in the spiritual. He goes into realms we cannot reach, dismantling plans that have been set in motion long before we even became aware of them. Think of Israel standing on the shores of the Red Sea. The enemy was behind them, the water was in front of them, and there was no visible way forward. They had no boats, no bridges, no escape route. But God had no need of any of those things. All He required was a moment to display His glory, and with one command the sea split, creating a path where there was none. That is what it means for God to fight for you. He makes a way in the very place that was designed to trap you. Sometimes you will not see His hand until the final moment, because the victory He is crafting is not just about your rescue, it's about the testimony that will follow. If Israel had found another way across, the miracle would not have been told for generations. But because there was no other way, because the odds were so impossible, the story became a pillar of faith for countless believers. That is what He is doing in your life. He is setting the stage so that the deliverance will be undeniable, unforgettable, and unexplainable except for Him. But stepping back requires humility. It requires laying down the desire to control, to retaliate, to force the outcome you think is best. It means trusting that His strategy may not match your logic, but it will always be better. It means believing that even if He delays, He is not denying you, He is preparing you. Because sometimes the delay is not about the enemy at all. It's about refining your own heart so that when the victory comes, you will carry it with grace instead of pride. And when you finally release it into His hands, you'll discover something unexpected: peace. Not because the battle has ended yet, but because you know whose hands now hold it. And once you've tasted that peace, you will understand why letting Him lead was the wisest choice you could have made. But here is something you must never forget. When God steps in, His fight is never just to end the battle. It is to establish His authority over every part of your life. He doesn't just silence your enemies. He silences the fear that they awakened in you. He doesn't just remove the threat. He removes the power it once had over your mind and your heart. This is why His victories are so complete, because they heal as well as protect. And sometimes His way of fighting is to allow you to stand still in the presence of your enemies while He prepares a table before you. He does not always remove them instantly. Sometimes He keeps them close enough to watch while He blesses you. This is not cruelty. It is a declaration. It's His way of showing that no weapon, no scheme, no opposition can stop what He has ordained. When the enemy sees you still standing, still breathing, still walking in faith after all they've tried to do to break you, it will be the loudest testimony you could ever give. Because at that moment, it will be clear to everyone watching that you did not survive because you were lucky, but because the Almighty fought for you. And perhaps that is the most humbling and awe-inspiring truth of all. The God who created the universe is not too distant to step into your personal battle. The same hands that hold the stars are the same hands that shield your life. And when He moves, nothing, not even the deepest schemes of darkness, can withstand Him. There is something extraordinary about the way God writes the final chapters of our battles. He does not simply bring them to a quiet end and fade them into history. He ensures that they become milestones of His faithfulness, reminders etched into the very fabric of our lives. And this is where so many misunderstand the nature of divine victory. It's not just about winning, it's about transforming the battlefield into a testimony. When God steps in to fight for you, He doesn't merely remove you from harm. He redefines your identity in the eyes of everyone who thought they knew your limits. The very people who expected you to fall will see you rise. Those who assumed the battle would destroy you will have to watch as it becomes the platform for your calling. And those who mocked your faith will be confronted with undeniable proof that your God is alive, attentive, and mighty in power. This is what happened with Daniel. The lion's den wasn't the end of his story. It became the stage for God's glory. Not only was Daniel unharmed, but the king himself proclaimed the greatness of the God Daniel served. That is how God fights. He uses what was meant to silence you as the very thing that amplifies His voice through you. And once He has done that, the victory becomes bigger than you. It becomes a beacon for others still in their own struggles. The same is true for you. The battle you have endured has been witnessed in heaven, and when the time comes for your deliverance, it will carry a weight far beyond your personal relief. It will inspire others, strengthen the weary, and awaken faith in those who have forgotten how to believe. Your survival will not just be about your story, it will be about His story, written through you. But here's what you must remember. The enemy does not fear your ability, he fears your defender. As long as you are fighting in your own strength, he knows he can wear you down. But when you step back and allow God to fight for you, the battlefield shifts entirely. Every blow the enemy throws must now pass through the hand of the Almighty. Every plot must face the one who sees the end from the beginning, and every chain must answer to the one who holds the keys to freedom. And there's something else. When God fights for you, His victory is permanent. Human victories can be reversed, circumstances can change, what was won can be lost again. But when He secures the win, it is sealed in eternity. No one can undo it, no one can take it from you, and no one can rewrite the outcome. That is why His timing is worth waiting for, because when He moves, it's final. So as you stand here now, still in the midst of the battle, still feeling the tension of the fight, let this truth settle deep in your spirit. You are not alone. You have never been alone, and you never will be alone. The God who has defended His people for generations is defending you now. The same power that split the sea, that shut the mouths of lions, that brought down walls with a shout, that power is fighting for you. And the day is coming when you will stand on the other side of this, looking back not with regret, but with gratitude for every moment He carried you. And when that day comes, you will understand something profound. The battle was never just about you winning. It was about you knowing, deep in your bones, that the Almighty Himself is your refuge, your fortress, and your warrior. So, to the one who has been fighting alone, to the one who has been carrying burdens too heavy for human shoulders, I say this: lift your eyes. Help is already on the way. The Lord of Heaven's armies has heard your cry, and he will not leave you to fend for yourself. His hand is stronger than your enemies, his wisdom deeper than your fears, and his love more relentless than the hatred that has come against you. Do not measure your chances by what you see, measure them by who stands with you. And the one who stands with you has never lost, never surrendered, and never been outmatched. Your battle is about to become your breakthrough, your pain is about to become your platform, and your story, the one you thought was ending in defeat, will be told as a testimony of victory for years to come. Hold your position. Keep your faith. The one who promised to fight for you is faithful, and the victory he brings will silence every doubt, every fear, and every enemy. When the dust settles, you will see it clearly. You were never alone in the fight. He was there all along, and he has already won.